I've been around this game long enough to know greatness isn't something you explain easily. You don't really talk about it while you're in it. You feel it. You recognize it sometimes before anyone else does. I've played against players who had all the tools, speed, strength, scoring, ability. That's part of it. But it's not what stays with you. What stays with you is when someone changes the way the game feels, when you have to adjust to them, not the other way around. I remember those moments. You step on the floor thinking you understand what's coming, and then you realize you don't. And that's when it hits you. That's when you know you're dealing with something different. I've seen that kind of player more than a few times in my career. And today, I'm going to tell you who truly belongs on that list. The next name I have to bring up is Bill Walton. Yeah, Bill was different, not in the way people usually think about big men. When you look at a center, you expect size, strength, positioning, all the traditional things. Bill had those, but that's not what made him stand out to me. It was the way he saw the game. You could tell pretty quickly he wasn't reacting to plays. He was already ahead of them. The first time I really had to deal with that, it caught me off guard. Not physically, mentally. You're used to controlling the inside as a center. You establish position, you dictate where things happen. But with Bill, it didn't feel like that. He didn't just play the spot, he controlled the flow around it. I remember one sequence against Portland. It wasn't even about scoring. That's the part that stayed with me. He got the ball high post. I'm set ready for the usual action. Instead of forcing anything, he just waited just long enough. Then the pass comes, not where the defense expects it, but exactly where it needed to be. Layup, easy. Next possession, same thing. Different angle, different read, same result. And you start to feel it building. Not pressure from scoring, but pressure from decisions. Every possession, you're thinking half step more than you should. You're anticipating not just his move, but what he might create for someone else. That's a different kind of weight. Bill didn't need to dominate you with points. He could, but that wasn't his game at its core. He dominated space, timing, awareness. He made the court feel connected in a way most players couldn't. And when you're playing against that, you realize your usual advantages don't mean as much. You can have position, you can have size, but if the other guy sees the play before it develops, you're already late. There were moments where I think I had control of the possession, good angle, good balance, ready to go to my hook, and then something shifts. A cutter appears where you didn't account for him. A pass comes from an angle you didn't expect, and suddenly you're reacting again. That's what made Bill difficult. He didn't take the game away from you in one move. He took it away piece by piece, possession by possession, until you're no longer dictating anything. You're just trying to keep up. And physically, he was still there, strong enough, disciplined enough. You couldn't ignore that part. But it was always tied to something deeper. He wasn't just occupying space, he was using it. Every inch had a purpose. When I look back at playing against him, I don't think about a single dominant moment. I think about how consistent he was in making the right decision over and over again. No rush, no hesitation, just clarity. That's rare because most players rely on what they can do. Bill relied on what the game needed, and he gave it that every time. Yeah, that's a different kind of greatness. That's why he belongs on this list. The next name I have to bring up is Bill Walton, continued. And the more you played against him, the more it started to wear on you in ways that weren't obvious. You don't walk off the floor thinking you got dominated. That's the strange part. You look at the game, you look at your numbers, and nothing feels completely out of place. But then you think about the flow, and you realize it never really belonged to you. There was a game, I remember trying to slow things down, establish position early, take control of the pace. That's how I like to play, methodical, precise. And for a stretch, it worked. I got into a rhythm, found my spots, made a few clean plays. But Bill didn't react to that the way most players would. He didn't try to match it directly. He just shifted the game somewhere else. Suddenly, the ball wasn't staying in one place. It was moving, quick decisions, quick reads. You're still in position, still doing what you're supposed to do, but the game is happening around you instead of through you. And that's when it hits you. You're no longer controlling anything. You're just part of it. That's a difficult adjustment to make in real time because as a center, you're taught to anchor everything. Defense, rebounding, interior scoring, it all runs through you. But Bill had a way of making that feel irrelevant, not by overpowering you, but by redirecting the entire structure of the game. And he was consistent with it. That's what made it even harder. It wasn't a flash of brilliance here or there. It was every possession, every decision, always the right read, or at least the right intention. You could feel that he trusted his understanding of the game more than anything else. And when a player has that kind of confidence in how they see the floor, it becomes very hard to disrupt. I remember thinking at times, if I take this away, he'll go somewhere else. If I adjust here, he'll find another angle. And that's exactly what happened. You weren't solving a problem, you were chasing it. That's not something you deal with often. Most players, even great ones, have patterns, tendencies you can lean on, things you can anticipate. With Bill, those patterns existed, but they were always tied to something bigger: the movement of his teammates, the positioning of the defense, the timing of the game itself. So even when you recognize what he was doing, it didn't help as much as you'd expect because he was already thinking about the next layer. Yeah. When I think about him now, I don't think about dominance in the traditional sense. I think about control, quiet control, the kind that doesn't force anything but still shapes everything. That's rare for a big man. That's rare for any player. And when you play against someone like that, um, you don't forget it. Not because it was overwhelming in one moment, but because it stayed with you across the entire game. Every possession, every decision, always just slightly out of your reach. Yeah, that's why he belongs here. Another player who belongs on this list is Moses Malone. Yeah, Moses was different from the start. He didn't try to control the game the way Bill did. He didn't make you think too much about angles or spacing. With Moses, it was simpler and at the same time harder to deal with because everything he did came down to effort and force, not in a wild way, but in a constant way. He never stepped off it, not for a possession, not for a moment. The first time I really had to deal with him, you felt it immediately, not just in the post, but on the boards. That's where it started. You'd get position, solid position, feel like the rebound was yours, and then he's there again and again. First jump, second jump, sometimes a third. He didn't stop. I remember a stretch where we were fighting for every rebound. I'd box him out, do everything the right way. Ball hits the rim, and somehow he's still in it. Gets a hand on it, tips it, keeps it alive. Even if he didn't come down with it clean, he changed the possession, and that's what wears on you. It's not one play, it's the repetition of it. You start thinking, I did everything right, and it still wasn't enough. That's the kind of pressure he brought, not from skill moves, not from finesse, but from refusal. He refused to let a possession end. And when you're a center, that's your responsibility. You're supposed to finish plays, secure the ball, control that part of the game. Moses made that feel uncertain. And offensively, it was the same thing. He wasn't trying to beat you with variety. He had his spots, his angles, his rhythm. He knew exactly where he wanted to be. And once he got there, he stayed with it. If the first shot didn't go, he was already moving for the next one. No pause, no hesitation. I remember thinking, you don't get a clean stop against him. Even when you do everything right defensively, the possession isn't over. And that changes how you approach the game. Because now you're not just defending once, you're defending layers of effort. That's exhausting. There were nights where the numbers didn't fully show what he was doing, but if you were out there, you felt it. Every missed box out, every loose ball, every second chance, it added up. And by the time the game got into those late stretches, you could feel the difference. He was still there. Same energy, same focus. That consistency, that's what made him dangerous. Not just for a quarter or run, but for the entire game. Most players, you can find a moment where they slow down, a possession where they ease up just a little. Moses didn't have that. If anything, he got stronger as the game went on. Yeah. When I think about him, I don't think about style. I think about pressure, constant pressure, the kind that doesn't go away no matter how well you think you're playing. And that's a different kind of greatness. It's not about making the game look different. It's about making it harder. Every single time down the floor, yeah, that's why he belongs here. Then there's someone you simply can't ignore, Larry Bird. Yeah, Larry was different. Not physically overwhelming, not faster than everyone else, not jumping over people. But the first time you play against him, you understand very quickly that none of that matters because he's already ahead of you. Not just one play, the whole game. Um, I remember those matchups, especially in the finals. Um, the thing about Larry is he doesn't rush anything. He lets the game come to him, and somehow he's always in the right place when it matters. You think you've covered everything. You think the possession is under control, and then he finds the one opening you didn't account for. And it's not luck. That's the part people misunderstand. With some players, you can live with certain shots, certain decisions. With Larry, you couldn't relax like that because every choice he made had a purpose. Every movement, every pass, every shot, it was already thought out. There was a moment I remember late in the game, tight score, both teams locked in. We were defending well, forcing them into a tough situation. Ball swings, ends up with Larry. You think it's contained, and then one move. Not fast, not explosive, just precise. Gets to a spot, rises up, and the shot is already gone before you can really contest it. That's when it hits you. You're not reacting to him, you're always reacting too late. And he knew it. That was part of his game. He didn't need to say much, but you could feel it in the way he played. Confident, controlled, completely aware of what was happening around him. And when a player has that level of awareness, it forces you to think differently. Because now it's not just about stopping a move, it's about trying to keep up with how he sees the game. And that's not easy. Larry could score, of course. He could pass. He could rebound. But what made him stand out was how he combined all of it without ever forcing anything. He didn't take the game over by speeding it up. He took it over by understanding it better than everyone else on the floor. There were stretches where you feel like you were in control. You'd build a lead, get into rhythm, everything going the way you planned, and then Larry shifts it. Not with one play, but with a sequence. A shot here, a pass there, a rebound that leads to something else. And before you know it, the game feels different. That's what stays with you. Not the highlights, not the numbers, but the feeling that no matter how prepared you are, he's already one step ahead. Yeah. Um, when I think about greatness, I think about players who force you to adjust your thinking, not just your defense, your understanding of the game itself. Larry did that every time. That's why you simply can't ignore him. And finally, I have to talk about Magic Johnson. Yeah, Magic. That one's different because with some players, you measure greatness by how hard they are to stop. With Magic, it was how much he changed everything around you, not just your matchup, the entire game. I saw him early before most people really understood what he was going to become. And even then, you could feel it. Not in a single move, but in the way he carried the floor. He didn't just run the offense, he shaped it. Every possession had a rhythm to it. And somehow he controlled that rhythm without forcing it. I remember moments where the game would slow down for me. I'd get to my spots, take my time, do what I've always done. And then Magic brings the ball up, and just like that, everything speeds up. Not chaotic, not out of control, just faster in a way that pulls everyone with it. And if you're not ready for that, you're already behind. There was a stretch in a game where we were struggling to find any flow. Half court sets weren't working, timing felt off. Magic gets the ball, pushes it, nothing obvious there. Defense is set. And then one pass, no hesitation, no extra movement. Just see something before it fully develops, and the play is done. Easy score. That's what made him different. It wasn't just vision. A lot of players can see plays. It was timing, knowing exactly when to act, when to hold, when to speed things up, and when to let it breathe. That kind of control, it doesn't come from talent alone. That's understanding. And he brought something else too, something you don't always talk about, energy. Not emotional, not loud for the sake of it, but something that lifted everyone around him. You could feel it shift the game. His teammates moved differently. The pace changed, the confidence changed. And when that happens, you're not just playing against one player anymore. You're dealing with an entire system that's working at a higher level. That's what made it difficult because you could do everything right on your end. You could control your matchup, stay disciplined, execute your game, and still the game doesn't feel like it's in your hands because magic is influencing everything else. Yeah, we won together. We built something together. But even then, you recognize it. You see what he brings to the floor, the way he connects everything, the way he controls not just possessions, but momentum. And that's rare because greatness isn't always about taking over. Sometimes it's about making everything else better, sharper, faster, more connected. Magic did that every night. And when you play with someone like that and against someone like that early on, you understand exactly what you're looking at. Yeah, that's why I have to talk about him. When I look back at all of them, I don't see a list. I see different ways the game can be taken from you, different ways control shows up without always looking the same. Wilt, that was force, not just physical, but something that stayed on you the entire game. You didn't get a break from it. Not for a possession, Bill. That was understanding. The kind that makes you feel like you're always reacting, even when you think you're set. Moses, that was pressure, constant, unrelenting. You could do everything right and still not finish the possession. Larry, that was awareness, seeing things before they happen and making you feel like you're always just a step behind. And Magic, that was control of everything else. Not just his game, but everyone's game. The rhythm, the energy, the direction of it all. That's what greatness looked like to me. It wasn't one thing. It wasn't something you could measure the same way every time. It showed up differently depending on who you were dealing with. But the one thing they all had in common, you had to adjust to them, not the other way around. And when that happens, when you're the one reacting, when the game doesn't feel like it belongs to you anymore, that's when you know, yeah, that's greatness. So now I've told you my list. What does yours look like?